suppose. And schools canceled in the United States due to migrants live there now. So sorry about that. Holy smokes, there's a lot to get to. Let's get to it. First, we have to start with school being canceled, right? Libs of TikTok is sharing this. Breaking. This is yesterday at 5 p.m. So yesterday afternoon, well after school has finished, Libs of TikTok posts this. JMHSBKL Brooklyn, whatever, has informed parents that tomorrow classes will be remote. That doesn't happen, by the way. They tried to institute remote classes for snow days in Ontario, and it fell completely flat. Nobody made their kids do that. Anyway, back to this. Why? Why are they doing remote in this Brooklyn school? Because a group of 2,000 illegal aliens are being transferred to New York City and will be sleeping in the school's gym. Americans are being deprived of an education to cater to illegals. Council member Ina V released a statement blasting the decision. This is unacceptable. And then the New York City mayor is tagged. This is what it says. And then the reason I'm sharing this, because New York school, what does that have to do with Canada? I feel that they are going to go after our institutions. They already are. They're already in hotels, which is the progress that it followed in the United States. And once the hotels are full, well, then they go to the schools. Once the schools are full, Elon Musk says they're coming for your homes. I don't think he's far off, but that's why I'm showing this to you, because I think that there's something to be concerned about here. There's a lot to be concerned about here vis-a-vis what's going to happen in Canada, because our property rights are less solid than the American property rights. Anyway, so here's the letter from Ina, and she says, I've been informed that due to incoming storm affecting New York City, around 2,000 migrants from Floyd Bennett Field will be transported to James Madison High School this evening and will be occupying its gymnasiums and auditorium overnight. This is both unacceptable and was entirely foreseeable, as Floyd Bennett Field is vulnerable to all forms of inclement weather conditions and is not a suitable housing facility. This emergency move was accurately predicted by critics of the Floyd Bennett Field as a location to be used as a migrant shelter. Our public schools are meant to be places of learning and growth for our children, and were never intended to be shelters or facilities for emergency housing. There are approximately 4,000 students who attend Madison High School. Their parents are rightly concerned. Our constituents who live in the vicinity are concerned for their safety and well-being. This will agitate local residents, disrupt the entire school environment, and place a tremendous burden on our families, students, and school administration and staff. As an elected official representing this community, I demand a full stop to using our public schools as a shelter ever again. I urge my colleagues in government to join me in this effort. We will continue to monitor this situation and hold those responsible for this move accountable. So, yikes, right? Once it starts, it's difficult. Once that bell is rung, it's difficult to unring. Elon Musk says this is what happens when you run out of hotel rooms. Soon, cities will run out of schools to vacate. They will come for your homes. Here is Libs of TikTok again, says buses are now pulling up to the Brooklyn school and dropping off illegals. School is closed tomorrow because illegals will be sleeping in the school's gym. How do you think this is going to go? I think this is going to go. I think it's already gone terribly. Here's a video of this. There are people getting off a yellow school bus and heading into the school, right? Why is this acceptable, or why is this unacceptable use of tax dollars? Why is the United States responsible for all of these people? In what way does arriving in the United States make the United States responsible to house you and make sure you're comfortable and make sure you're fed and all of the rest of it? When on the flip side, there are Americans, even veterans who serve the country, who are homeless and going hungry, where illegals are being put up in school gymnasiums. Here's another one from Libs of TikTok. I just received this footage from a mom in James Madison High School in New York City, where students are learning remotely to make room for illegals to sleep there. Workers are unloading cots, food, and supplies for the illegals. This mom is told not to record. So it's 45 seconds. And here we go.
Oh, this is cots. This is bed. They're bringing in food.
Looks like the buses are arriving simultaneously. Like you can see the buses in the background arriving.
Why not? Why not? I gotta see where my tax dollars are going.
So she's told not to record. She says, why not? I have to see where my tax dollars are going, and continues recording. So pretty wild stuff, right? Here is Holly Doan, and this is what's happening in the United States. The hotels are full. The shelters are full. The schools are being filled, right? That's what's happening in the United States and Canada. Government opens visa applications from Canadians for 1,000 extended family seeking to leave Gaza. Applicants who are able to exit Gaza will also need to meet all admissibility requirements, including fingerprint and background checks. So they want to bring people, refugees from Gaza. I think this is poorly ill-advised. We don't know what we're getting ourselves into, right? There's a reason that none of the Arab nations around Gaza and Palestine and Israel will take those people. There's a reason behind it. Us stepping in and white knighting here is not helpful, right? And it doesn't help diplomacy. We should absolutely keep out of it and stop trying to pretend that we know better. Honestly. And people from the Middle East have said people in the West are doing things and playing with things they don't understand, and they refuse to accept when people tell them the reality of it. And they're going to get harmed because of their stupidity. And I think he was bang on. I'm paraphrasing, but I think he was bang on. Here's Brian Lilly, and this is the tax increases in Toronto and housing, and people are worried about how it's going to impact housing. Brian Lilly says, it's not just homeowners who will be hurt by Toronto's big tax hike, but renters too. We are looking at a tax hike of more than 10%, while the city refuses to look at existing spending in a serious way and promises more programs. So more spending, huge tax increase, 10%. Guelph had a 10% tax increase. They backed it off to 8 or 9%. But there's a guy in Guelph, and he is standing around standing around the city with a big sign. I mean, it's like a billboard, right? And it says Cam Guthrie approved a 38% tax hike. And he's right. Over the next 4 years, it's like 10% a year, bouncing between 5 and 10% a year. And so he's not wrong. And people are absolutely numb to this. They don't understand how much of their own money goes to taxes. Something like if you got $100 and bought gas and alcohol at the liquor store, something like $77 goes back taxes. Like, it's crazy. Maybe that's too high, but it's a high amount. It's a lot of the purchase going to taxes rather than actual product or cost of the product or whatever. So it's pretty incredible, and it's concerning. It's very concerning. And if you're putting up property taxes at the same time as mortgage prices, interest rates have gone up at the highest rate in 40 years, people are going to have a hard time paying those increased rates. That's not good. That's not helpful, right? Mark Toey says, just over 1,000 days remain until somebody, hopefully, rescues Toronto from the mess it's gotten itself into. Who will it be? Again, I really don't think that Olivia Chow was in any way whatsoever elected properly in the proper course of things. Our elections, from school board to council and city mayors and things like that, all the way up to federal, are, I think, completely and utterly corrupted. I don't think that they're actually functional. I think that it has the facade of functionality. It looks like it works. And if you don't want to look into it too much, it's good enough. But you end up with results like this. I don't think that we're being represented accurately or honestly. And we get people who are working for not the citizens. Somebody said yesterday as well, during the Olivia Chow and her skating event being bombarded by protesters, she had 4 security guards, and somebody said security for Olivia Chow behind her, right? Making sure that nobody was going to come and attack her or anything like that. 4 security guards for Mayor Chow, no security guards for you, right? Those guys are probably armed, all sorts of stuff. No security guards for you, right? So it's a really interesting kind of situation that Toronto has gotten itself into, but Canada as well, when the politicians don't actually work for the citizens, but instead work for special interests. And the special interests are tied to, the Confucius Center, or the special interests are tied to this one guy who knows another guy who owns the company and he's going to inject lots of money into your thing. Then, that's a compromised election. We've got proof that there's compromised elections. There's Chinese assets. There's a whole Chinese network of people who are working to get their own assets elected, and they have influence over those assets. And we've got even names like Mary Ng is implicated. Sam Cooper's talked about Mary Ng. And still, it doesn't seem like not that anybody cares, because people care. But The politicians aren't worried. Mary Ng is not worried. She went down to the Three Amigos concert right after these allegations surfaced. Nobody cares, right? And so it seems very, very interesting. If you just look at the surface, Canada's politics looks okay. Could pass a smell test, maybe, if you're not smelling too hard. But it doesn't take much digging at all to come to the conclusion that there's something very hinky, something very fishy going on. Very fishy indeed. Okay, let's talk about Taylor Swift. This is interesting. I think it's a little loud, but I don't know how to back this off. I'll back this off like this. This guy, I don't want to listen to his response. He talks for 3 minutes. A couple of the things he points out, and I think that he makes some really good points. He's nearly incredulous about the whole thing. He makes the point that, I think he made the point, but so does Waters here. I've got, I think Jesse Waters, talking about this. He makes the point as well that the boyfriend is sponsored by Pfizer and this whole thing reeks like a Psyop. But yeah, it seems like the Pentagon pitched NATO on using Taylor Swift as a Psyop. And it says right here, goal, identify key actors, and the key actor is Taylor Swift, to train and spread desired messaging. So you can get Taylor Swift to train her audience to say things like to have political opinions, right? Like, ooh, Donald Trump's so blah, right? He's a scrub or whatever, right? That's TLC, right? No scrubs. That's probably outdated. The kids don't use that anymore. But you get my meaning, right? So she can influence them. Example, encourage opinion leaders to share counter IO content. Risk, opinion leaders may not want to share the content or may accidentally share misleading content. Oh, right. So here is a part of this. I think it's interesting, and I'm going to show Jesse Waters' take on it as well. But here's part of this. Here we go.
The first one, that's the most famous.
Oh my gosh. Jeepers creepers, too fast. This is better.
So the first one, that's the most famous and the most common, is working with famous people or main influencers to share information or a particular message. So I include Taylor Swift in here because...
Are you fucking kidding me? NATO Psychological Operations Unit. It's on the screen. Center of Excellence. The NATO Center of Excellence. In 2019, Taylor fucking Swift, who I probably rage posted about 1,400 times about as a geopolitical instrument of statecraft because her goddamn IP discography was purchased by the fucking Carlyle Group.
Okay, so he goes off and he's swearing and all sorts of stuff. I don't know that you need to be that kind of explosive about the whole thing, right? Sure, the Carlyle Group. So George Soros bought her intellectual property, and then she re-recorded a bunch of her songs in order to keep the property. But you know what she did? She changed a bunch of the lyrics. One of the songs, the lyric is, you told my friends I'm crazy, that's fine, I'll tell mine you're gay. And she changed it to not say that. And because I was singing it in the car and the song was on. It was the new version. You can tell because Taylor Swift sounds older. She sounds different, right? Like the original version was recorded when she was, I think, still a teenager. And so now she's, 40? She's older now, right? She should have kids before time's up, man. I'm just saying. It's none of my business. Sip of tea. But still, right? Fundamentally, she sounds older, and I was singing along, and I know the words. When the words are in my head, they're in my head, and I sang the right words, and she did not, and I said, that's a stupid song, that's a dumb change. But the whole point is for her to be like on the side of woke, right? And she is a part of that whole psyop. So I'll listen to her old stuff before, like when she was writing honest songs. I think she actually wrote her songs, but now, I mean, it's just like mainlining the government propaganda, right? Jeepers creepers. Even music, country music there's a song called Get in the Truck where the guy drives up and he sees I think I've talked about this before, but he sees the girl on the road, and the whole song is like, I see this girl on the road and she gets in the truck and she's beat up, and he says, where's he at? And she tells him, and he drives up and kills the guy. And the whole thing is he's white knighting this girl, and you're supposed to emulate that. And it's similar to, and I've shown this before as well, but there's these rap guys who were talking in the 80s about how there was a meeting and people came in and said, you don't have to do anything. You might go to jail, but you'll be invested in the prisons and so on and so forth. And like talk about being a thug, make rap about being in jail and doing things to get you in jail. And that will increase the rates of prison, so on and so forth. And it just seems like the target has shifted from one demographic to another, right? From the demographic that would listen to rap music to the demographic that would listen to country music. And I've heard a bunch of other songs highlighting a similar theme, and it's interesting to note. Here is Jesse Waters talking about Taylor Swift and her selling out to the powers that be. Here we go.
Well, Taylor Swift's the biggest star in the world. Sorry, Gutfeld. She's been blanketed across the sports media entertainment atmosphere. The New York Times just speculated she's a lesbian. And last year's tour broke Ticketmaster, a tour that's revenue tops the GDP of 50 countries. I mean, I like her music. She's all right. But, I mean, have you ever wondered why or how she blew up like this? Well, around 4 years ago, the Pentagon's Psychological Operations Unit floated turning Taylor Swift into an asset during a NATO meeting. What kind of asset? A Psyop for combating online misinformation. Listen.
You came in here wanting to understand how you just go out there and counter an information operation. Well, the idea is that social influence can help encourage or promote behavior change, so potentially as like a peaceful information operation. I include Taylor Swift in here because she's a fairly influential online person. I don't know if you've heard of her.
Yeah, that's real. The Pentagon Psyop unit pitched NATO on turning Taylor Swift into an asset for combating misinformation online. This is nothing new. In the 1950s, the government strong-armed Louis Armstrong into doing propaganda tours across Africa. The CIA did the same thing with jazz singer Nina Simone, except they did it without her really knowing. In the 70s, Nixon enlisted Elvis in his war on drugs. He gave the king a badge and named him a covert federal law enforcement agent. Michael Jackson was tapped by Reagan using his song Beat It in his public service campaigns against teen drinking and driving. Michael Jackson persuading minors not to drink. Anyway, so is Swift a front for a covert political agenda? Primetime obviously has no evidence. If we did, we'd share it. But we're curious, because the pop star who endorsed Biden is urging millions of her followers to vote. She's sharing links. And her boyfriend, Travis Kelce, sponsored by Pfizer. And their relationships boosted the NFL ratings this season, bringing in a whole new demographic. So how's the Psyop going? Well, as usual, Biden's not calling the shots because he doesn't even know who Taylor Swift is. He's confused her with Britney Spears and Beyonce.
You could say even this harder than getting a ticket to the Renaissance tour or Britney's tour. She's down in, it's kind of warm in Brazil right now.
Former FBI agent Stuart Kaplan.
So they go into, he says, is this plausible?
Kaplan joins us now. Stuart, is this feasible?
Yes, 100%. It is absolutely feasible. 100, yes. The more I think about it, the more it makes sense. And the more I think they're thinking, who else can we get to date NFL players? Here is Naya, and she says 50% of Canada's daily newspapers are owned by one company. So here's the 2022 ownership group. So this is a couple of years old now, if we think about it. The ALTA newspaper group has 3. The Post Media Network has 37 papers. Okay, so there's Continental Newspapers that has 3. CN2I has 6. It's a French outlet. I think that's the second biggest. Independent has 6. Torstar Group, I was wrong. Torstar Group has 7, but that's Toronto Star, Hamilton Spectator, Niagara Falls Review, Peterborough Examiner, St. Catharines Standard, the Tribune in Welland, and the Record in Grand River. And I'm not surprised by this. You can see it when you look across our media landscape. Everybody's got reposts of other things, like the Toronto Sun reposts the same thing that the Windsor Star runs, and across the country as well. Like there's the Winnipeg Sun runs the same thing as the Toronto Sun runs. So it makes sense because they're a single entity. but the newspapers are running the same content. It's just like a content mill, right? Like, I'm pretty sure that, would this be a PBN, like a private bot network, private blog network, where you're all interlinking and you're helping each other's website? Anyway, it seems like they're all enriching themselves. And I'm pretty sure there's crossover, although I don't know if there's crossover in ownership, but there's crossover in the upper echelon anyway. And I'm pretty sure as well, it doesn't, there's some family that owns, maybe that's just in Post Media. Maybe that's the Black family. Anyway, regardless, it seems like a very easy, if you had the means, you could undermine the messaging from this group of papers very easily. And then if you were able to influence what they were posting, you could absolutely lie to an entire country very easily. Very easily, right? Holy smoke. Here's the Globe and Mail. Speaking of lying to an entire country, the Globe and Mail says extreme weather and misinformation are top global risks for the next couple of years, says the WEF. Oh, thank you, the Globe and Mail. Whew. I mean, yeah, extreme weather and misinformation and the WEF. They're hitting all the check boxes for the buzzwords this time of year. CP24 this time of year. This time in the communist takeover, right? We'll get there. Here's David Menzies, and he is being arrested in this image here, and CP24 is reporting on this. Rebel News set to sue police Freeland after journalist's arrest. I don't know how much luck they're going to have. Freeland is going to be able to claim no knowledge of this. She's going to say, I have no idea. I don't have control over this police officer. I didn't direct him to do anything. I was walking on the sidewalk, minding my own business. I wasn't going to answer the question of the reporter, but I didn't direct anybody to do anything. I shouldn't be included in this lawsuit. I think that's what her argument's going to be. So possibly they're casting their net too wide, but we'll see. We'll see how that's going to work out. But the officer certainly, absolutely should be held to account for what he did, because what he did was assault David Menzies and then arrest him falsely for assault. Here is Andrew Lawton. And I thought I had this tweet directly. Like, I was sure I had this tweet directly, but Canada Proud is sharing it. Christia Freeland doesn't actually mean anything she says. Just listen. Incredible post by Andrew Lawton. And Andrew Lawton is quoting Freeland. We have to work together in order to ensure that journalists can carry out their work in all safety and without any kind of worry for reprisals, Christia Freeland, as David Menzies gets arrested.
And there is no part of our liberal democratic garden which is more threatened by the jungle's resurgence than the free press. The danger is often specific and physical. Beaucoup d'entre vous ont probablement.
Many of you have probably already, in fact, realized that have seen the number of journalists that have lost their lives over the last few years. So let's just remember them for a minute, and let us also salute their courage, because the troubling reality, as was explained in detail during meetings today and yesterday, and that the journalists and workers in the media are more and more targeted and are more and more abused and attacked. And this must stop. We have to work together in order to ensure that journalists can carry out their work in all safety and without any kind of worry for reprisals.
In all safety. I don't think we don't say that in French or in English usually. Mark Reed. So Christia Freeland is a hypocrite to the highest order, and she likes to be on scene when journalists are assaulted. And if she's in front of a delegation or doing a speech or something like that, if she has to look good for an international group or something, she will say these words, but her actions betray her feelings, right? And so she doesn't believe what she's saying. She's just saying it to look good on the international stage. When words are put to the test, she stands by while the reporter gets arrested. And so that's who Christia Freeland is. When people show you who they are, believe them. Mark says, you can't make this up. The store clerk got hit with the bat by an attempted robber, and the altercation the store clerk got hit with the bat by an attempted robber, and the altercation, the clerk managed to get the bat and return the beating to the criminal. Now the clerk is facing charges. So, like, this is a 30-second read, and it's jaw-dropping. It's jaw-dropping what's going on. So I don't know I don't know how this is going to go, because Canada is not a serious country anymore. A 22-year-old convenience store clerk from Peterborough has been charged following a confrontation with a baseball bat wielding robber. The incident happened on January 5th at a corner store near King and Bethune Street. Peterborough Police Service, PPS, were called to the area around 2:30 a.m. Officers at the scene said the male employee was helping a male customer when a second man, brandishing a baseball bat, entered the store and demanded that the clerk hand over cash. Police said a struggle ensued, and the suspect struck the worker with the bat. Okay, so you've been hit by a baseball bat after the guy with the bat has demanded money from you. You think, this is a slam dunk. I'm all clear. Here we go. Okay. The clerk then allegedly grabbed the bat from the suspect, who fled the store. The clerk followed him out of the store and hit him several times with the bat on the sidewalk. The suspect sustained head injuries and is now at a Toronto hospital receiving treatment. The clerk, whose name has not been revealed, was treated at the scene by paramedics. He was subsequently charged with aggravated assault and appeared in court on January 6th and held in custody. He was arrested. Police say they intend to charge the robbery suspect, whom they have identified as a 37-year-old man. So that's all. He's 37. Oh, and he's charged with robbery and assault with a weapon and possession of a weapon. They're also looking to speak with the male customer who witnessed the incident. Holy smoke. Okay. You are not allowed to defend yourself in Canada. You are not allowed to walk down a sidewalk in Canada. You are not allowed to do anything in Canada that may impact criminal. You're not allowed to post. If somebody steals your mail, like if somebody steals an Amazon package and you have Ring door or like doorbell footage of that person, camera footage of that person, you can't post it in Canada because it might violate the rights of the criminal. Unbelievable stuff. And so, I mean, this is going to clog up our courts even further, right? But jaw-dropping what's going on in Canada. And it just seems like they want the chaos in the courts. It seems like that. Here's Vivek Ramaswamy, and he's talking about turning off the liars because the liars are not telling you the truth. He talks about January 6th. He's talked at length previously about the 2020 election being stolen from Donald Trump. So he is saying quite a lot of the right things. Somebody was saying like, you have to take the wins when you've got the wins. And I'm surprised how often, like when you look into Elon Musk, there seems to be more than meets the eye there. Stuff that doesn't seem to be matching up with his stated purpose. But he does a whole bunch of things, and his actions really do sometimes match his words. He does a whole bunch of things, like purchasing Twitter, that seem like he's on the side of free speech. But then there's still censorship on Twitter. Like there's a lot of censorship on Twitter, actually. And so that's interesting to note, right? Especially in Canada. And is that something that the Canadian government is imposing on Twitter? It could be, right? It might not be Elon at all, and I'm just misreading it. Plausible, absolutely plausible. But for me, Barack Obama at the time said all the right things to really make people believe that he was on the side of the people, right? And he was one of the worst. Absolutely. And he started right away. And people didn't see it. People didn't see it because they didn't want to see it, I think. And it seems like, including myself, like it took a long time after even, not quite after Trump, but like it took Trump gaining a lot of traction and like Reddit banning Trump for people to really wake up and go, hold on a second. How many bombs did he drop again? So I'm not necessarily saying that Vivek, the candidate, is bad, but I would have classified Barack, the candidate, as pretty good too, right? So I don't know, man. I don't know. He says all the right things. Don't get me wrong. That's what sends my red flag up. I'd love to be wrong. I'd love for him to come in with a wrecking ball and bring. He's obviously a smart guy. He's very quick. He's got recall on him that is unbelievable, and you don't see that in a lot of politicians. He's smart, quick on his feet, holds people accountable. I like him. I do. But like it seems like every time, almost without fail, it's like, oh man, yeah, but there's more here than meets the eye. So we'll see. That's all I can do, right? Here we go.
I'm Vivek Ramaswamy, and I approve this message. The mainstream media is trying to rig the Iowa GOP caucus in favor of the corporate candidates who they can control. Don't fall for their trick. They don't want you to hear from me about the truth of what really happened on January 6th, the truth about the COVID origin, the Hunter Biden laptop story, and everything else they have lied to you about. So you can fix that. Take your remote and turn this off.
I think you could have said turn that off. right? I think he could have done that. But anyway, whatever. We'll see. The tricks they're using for GOP in Iowa are the same kind of tricks they're using in Canada. It is the same play. It's the same, like if you're watching football, they're running the same play. It's just the different teams' version of it to fit their electoral system. And in Canada, they're doing similar things to rig the ballots, rig the everything, own both sides, all of that, right? Nikki Haley, yep, they do that here too. Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful